Welcome to Universal Heritage Television, Niger. We bring to you today an interesting edition of our face-to-face on UHTV. This is an interview segment of our program, and we have as guests today Dr. Sam Amadi, Director, Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Dr. Sam, you are welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah, we are going to share thoughts on a few things, contemporary issues that are happening in the society. Let me begin with you first. Recently, there was this news report that you were appointed into, I guess it's the PDP Presidential Campaign Council, and you rejected it. Some of your admirers will want to know your reason for turning down such an offer, which many people will normally jump for, because of maybe the benefits that accrue from such activity.
Well, thank you very much. Well, first, it's not for any bad feeling or intention. And by the way, some people keep asking me, oh, did they first get to you or not? I have had institutional relationship with PDP as somebody who has worked with PDP government from a long time, under Ken Naman as Senate President, and then Chief Ojo Madekwe as Foreign Affairs Minister, was advisor, and then worked as Chief Executive myself under a PDP government. So I've had a long relationship with PDP. And recently I've been working with the National Chairman, trying to help them set up their think tank, the People Democratic Institute, which is really a think tank for development, which has been kind of abandoned. So I came in as a brain ideas man to help the chairman revamp it, and in that capacity I also helped the presidential campaign structure their structure. So I played a significant role in helping them sketch the presidential campaign structure and ideas. But because of my two reasons. One is the platforms in which I operate are platforms that require a lot of non-partisanship.
Non-partisanship.
Yes, Nigerians look onto me with some degree of modesty as one of the few ideas men who are in public intellectuals who would like to bring up what should be done. And so you want to be sure that you don't want to come up where people won't even pay attention to the idea. They just categorize and say, oh, this is...
Okay, it belongs to them. It's one of them.
Exactly. And Presidential Council is hyper-partisan. In fact, it can be a party member without being as partisan. Some party members may vote for other parties. Some party members may criticize their campaign council and the activity. But once you're a member of the campaign council, you are hyper-partisan. So if I'm director of research, which is a key part of the Atiku campaign that was proposed, it means that if people say, oh, this is the director of research, then now that I'm doing a lot of work on the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought to find solutions to Nigeria's development crisis, we are doing a lot of public hearing, we are doing a lot of summit and roundtables. It will compromise my effectiveness in talking to a broader sector of Nigeria on what we need to do post-election. So I figured out it's better for me to protect my voice and my intellect and provide it to Nigerian project rather than get stigmatized. So I think Atiku is an experienced, credible candidate, just like P2B. And again, in my own scheme, I think probably if Nigeria wanted a more adequate change, I would go for P2B. And then, of course, the one option that I think Nigeria should not go is APC. I think PDP.
We'll come to that.
Yeah, PDP.
You need to elaborate.
I know. I don't think it's against PDP that opting out. Is because I want to see myself as somebody who values my honest, independent views, and I think the country needs many people not to be overtly partisan.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I guess those who were wondering about why you turned down will now be satisfied with your response. Okay, drawing from your experience and also what is currently happening in Nigerian politics, and you have a wealth of experience of, being in the murky waters of Nigerian politics when you ran in the 2019 gubernatorial election. Now, can you make a forecast of what 2023 holds for Nigeria? Which way do you think things will play out?
I would like to say,
as a public policy analyst?
I would like to say the way I think it should, and the way I think it may. Now, the way it should is that Nigeria has come to a point in history where several and serial failures as a country. Failures to take off economically, failure to stabilize itself politically. Look at the conflict. We are now in the worst stage in our life where the entire country is lost to banditry. I mean, just yesterday, the family, the Apostle Suleiman, the high profile, was attacked to the family members, and about 3 to 7 police officers were reportedly killed. We saw that with Ifajoba. Now, this is a country where on a daily basis, security officers, police, military have been taken out. So we now have generalized lawlessness. The collapse of the Nigerian state is very clear and imminent. So in that kind of context, you expect that Nigerians you need a change, a course direction change, what they call a course correction. You're moving this way, and there's a major tide. You course correct and face. If Nigerians deepen understanding about where they are and what they need to do, I think P2B should be the candidate out of the 3 they should vote for, because he should win if we understood properly where we are and what we need to do going forward. So he possesses the best of the capabilities to reinvent and redirect course. But look, politics being an art, a game of the possibles, politics being a game of realism, of strategy and what happens. I think that the election is still very difficult to call. I think that
very difficult to call
to say who win because of the various factors. One of them is that the past pattern seems to have been disrupted a little bit. So the past pattern, a PDP to 2-horse race. By now you say, okay, this guy will win this part of the country, but with P2B eroding PDP's base in the north, in the southeast, and the south and north central. So the question for P2B will be: can he make some significant inroad into northeast, northwest, and be competitive in the southwest? Then he win the election, neat and clear. For Atiku Abubakar, his path to victory is really one-dimensional. Basically, is he going to get most of the northern vote? If he gets most of the northeast, northwest vote, I mean, win in mass, then he can compensate for predicted loss in southeast, south, and north central. Then he win. But if he's going to share that territory, that northeast, northwest, with PDP, with APC, where the governors are mostly APC, and with some bit of Labour, then his chances to the presidency become darker. Because look, I think he's not going to be strong in the southeast, south, and the north central. So Tinubu will probably hold strong in southwest. We're going to see a wave of ethnic politics and ethnic messaging, but he will still struggle to wipe off the P2B Obide movement. In Lagos, will be contentious. He may not win. Peter may, even if he wins Lagos, it will be split. But in the other part of Southwest, we don't know what's going to happen. The PDP may be strong in Oyo. PDP may be strong in Osun. Ogun State, Labour may try well because of spillover Lagos, Abeokuta. So if Tinubu does not win big in northwest and northeast, where he has APC governors, he has no party to do. So you can see that too many unknown. But what I would say that Peter ought to be the best candidate in the context of where we are and what we need to do to move forward. We need to disrupt continuity. It's not going to work. We've had serial losses. So in other countries in the world where a country senses a sense of new direction, they look for a person who is not status quo, properly defined. I mean, Peter has been in politics, but primarily his image is the image of somebody who comes something fresh. So I would say he probably should win, but whether he wins, we'll get to December, it becomes clearer. These dynamics are to play out.
Okay, your analysis is very nice, but you appear to lose sight of the fact that the way the character of Nigerian politics, where irregularities, frauds are brought in, and we haven't gotten to 2023 actually. We're already hearing things like we are in 2022.
Yes, good.
Now things are playing out with the trending issue of what is now tagged Omuma magic. You know, those factors, did you reckon with them? Yes, in in your analysis? Because INEC holds everything, and there are authorities that control what happens in INEC. People have appointed people to run the affairs of INEC. So those influences, you don't reckon with it.
Good question.
Yeah.
You know, when you do analysis, you do it based on some assumptions. And the assumption here is that nobody will be so demented and desperate to plunge the country into chaos, into war. Okay, let's see what I think. I think that INEC as an institution is improving, but the human factor has not yet got to the level it ought to be in terms of credibility. So INEC officials are still falsifiable, corrupt. Basically, they are very corrupt people. And they expect that a corrupt country like Nigeria would have corrupt INEC. Now, but what has changed is that it's no longer totally in their hand. With the beavers, like one of the few non-corrupt INEC people, Mike Guinea, said, you don't have control anymore. With the beavers and with the law saying you must use the beavers. That's the point. Number two is that, yes, they're going to be vote buying at a large scale, because these politicians who have no persuasion to give anybody would like to use money to buy vote. But then the question is, if INEC use the cubicle that they're supposed to use, which is the cubicle that gives you perfect secrecy. So the idea of voting and showing the card to people so they'll see and pay a balance. This time around, with total secrecy, everybody can collect the money, vote for whoever they like, and say we voted for, we did a deal. So we're going to see less and less impact of vote buying. And then finally, I think that, look, the Nigerian youths who are also working for the BDM movement and the PDP people too, who want to be in power, would resist flagrant violations. And people like us, and part of really why I didn't want to be part of the campaign of any party, that I also intend to take back the role of my former boss, Gani Fawemi, to incessantly harass INEC in court.
Okay.
To force INEC to harass. INEC, I've said before, INEC is the weakest link. And don't assume on what they tell you. We have to literally force INEC by the neck and press them down until they do the right thing. That's what I think should happen.
Now, do you intend to do this as an individual, personally, or you have a group you want to co-opt?
I want to do, well, you know, oftentimes in Nigeria, they struggle, start as a man. I want to do it as Abuja School and Sab Amadi. So we'll go to court, we have earmarked several cases we're going to file. And any of these cases to use the Electoral Act to force INEC to take actions, regulatory actions. For example, now, issues around campaign finance. INEC has done nothing about the protocol, the standard, the procedure for reporting who contributes what. So you can't be doing a democratic election with illicit funds, with money from money laundering. You have to follow the Constitution has said how much you can use. So we also want to see election after election. We'll be able to see the books of the parties and see who contributed what and who took what. So when you say you gave INEC officials 1 billion, so yes, they will still cook the book. But when you have a standard, it constrains fraud. The reason why this country is so fraudulent, there are no standards, there are no procedures to constrain public affairs for this. So if you say, for example, every quarter, the party must report on a sheet how much they have spent, how much came in. In that report, as they set it up and manipulate it, you see errors. Those errors can now, it's perjury. So if the chairman of a party signs off on fraud, later when I discover that 20 million was given to X or 100 million was given to X, if that's reported, it can be a basis for people to press him for imprisonment. So it will restrain him small from fraud. So Nigeria has to use a rule-based approach to control some of these electoral corruption and crimes.
Well, thank you so much, because what you are saying now appears to mean that there is you seem to have more confidence in the Electoral Act
than INEC itself. Totally correct.
Okay, except a few professionals like P2B, Patu Tome, and maybe a handful of others, professionals that have dared and developed the courage to participate in Nigerian politics. Much of the middle class, the professionals, you find them in the corporate world and they are doing well. People talk about the private sector. You know, when you compare private sector and public sector, everybody wants to take a side with the private sector.
Yeah.
Now, what is this challenge they have, the players have in going into politics to remedy the situation we're experiencing? Because we do know that if people come into the public sector, but people with the background of P2P, Patutomi, and like somebody like you, like when you were going for the 2019,
doing the 2018 primary
for 2019, you had what you call IMO change or change
the
IMO.
IMO movement.
The new IMO, yes.
With the community action plan for prosperity.
Oh yes, I looked at the model and it was very fine and it could deliver if well implemented.
Yeah.
But we don't find people like you on the other side playing the politics. So what is the challenge? What is really the issue?
I think the issue.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
Let me drag it down further down. Like if you take Anambra for example, what is happening in Anambra, or where you have players who come from the background of business and apply business models, you know, and
to governance.
To governance.
See, the reason is that the first law of motion says that objects continue in a motion until something acts on them.
Okay.
So if I throw this in like this now, it's going to be until hit this wall. Is that so?
Yeah.
So society moves in what we call path dependence. They continue in the path. IMO in 1999, after the return to civil rule, fell into a kind of leadership of what we now know as 419 leadership. Basically, persons who are either 419 themselves, or are friends of 419, or are part of the ecosystem of 419.
Yes.
The governance become a transaction. It's basically about cash and carry. So somebody struggles with the power, then his people who are 419 people transactions. They tell him how to make money, how to do this.
It's not about governance.
We saw Anambra was also in that trap. Mbaduju gave a terrible government. But the Anambra professionals now say, look, we need to do something. That's how P2P. P2P was not, they didn't come and say, I want to be governor. They sorted him out, and then he came. Then luckily for them, you see, there's always a internal and external factor coming together. Okay. The external factor was the people that rigged that election, had issue among themselves, gigging, and the godfathers fell out. So that vacuum empowered Peter to win back his mandate at the Supreme Court at Katapi. And since then, no matter what you say about Obiano, I'm more critical of Obiano, but you can say Obiano did far better than any of the IMO governors. Look at the international airport. Look at this. So now Soldier has come, and Soldier is moving in a manner that shows that he understands the rigor of governance. Yeah. So Anambra has taken off in a different trajectory. IMO needs to take off. So why the professionals are not yet there is that they're looking at this. The Bible talks about the dark place of the earth filled with wickedness and cruelty. So they're looking at the dark place of IMO, the dark places filled with cruelty. And they're asking themselves, really, do we really think, is this possible? Do the people want redemption? That's the first question. So they're not sure that the people will really want to be saved. And they're asking themselves, what? So, but now, a few of us have to take the courage to once again tell the people, you need to be delivered, and you can be delivered. You can actually deliver yourself. You don't need to. You see, this voting is like, if you've read C.S. Lewis' book, he talked about, one of his books about the Satan using sorcery, you know. Part of Satan's strategy is to tell people you can't escape. This stealing you're stealing, he can't stop you too. It's in your blood. You fail. It's part of you. You want to stop smoking cigarettes, say, you can't, my brother, don't try it. They tried before, they failed. So that fear, do as a structure. Can you break these guys? These guys are criminals. Are you sure that the people self
they want to be liberated?
So if you think that these youths are saying they collect money
and go away,
that will make us fit a company. We just say let's continue to part the treasure. But I think that right now there's a room now for Igbo people to shake off the beast, as they say, and assert themselves and redeem their future. And that's I'm calling not just all the qualified, competent people who have genuine love for the Igbo people should rise up. And part of it is like very soon I will start an intervention on newspaper radio telling the Igbo people to vote for, don't forget the party, vote for from House of Assembly. Look for, if you see somebody in Action Party or Annoyance Party or Rockford Party, he
who has the competence,
send him there. The Nigerian political parties are no longer definitive of projects or program. So send the right, especially at the local level, House of Assembly, legislature, federal, House of Reps and Senate, vote the right. So when the time for governor comes in, we will be there by the grace of God to say, I tell our people, you electing a leader. I went to preach some Christian association, they come to teach them on leadership, and I said, look, when people vote, they are telling God that this is the man who have sent us our Redeemer. We accept him. When he fails, we will fail. So that's why when leaders fail, we suffer. So voting is not to be used as for brother or for friendship.
Yeah.
Because when you vote for somebody, you are saying, I have confidence in his ability, and therefore whatever he does, I will take the responsibility.
Yeah. Okay, so very well said. Let me come further down home to Imo State still. There is this legal maxim, or I don't know whether that should qualify for a maxim. You say, we heard this statement that justice delayed is justice denied.
It's a maxim, yeah.
Yeah. And in Imo State here, since 5 months or thereabout, the National Industrial Court of Nigeria has been shut down, has been under lock and key. And that resulted from the brigandage of agents of Imo government, who attacked the court following a judgment, a ruling they gave in favor of the former deputy governor. Now, in protest, the court was sealed, was shut down. And recently, when the National Industrial Court was marking its legal year this month, the president of the court, I can't get his name right now, but he mentioned that the reason, Kayib,
yeah.
Yes, that the reason they shut down the court is because they feel very unsafe, and they have not received the guarantee that if the court reopens, everything will be fine. Now, it's very, very disturbing for the people of Imo State, and indeed because that court is not beneficial to only Imo people. And we expect some kind of actions coming from either the NBA or some of the other legal organizations to put pressure either on the government or the management of the court itself to resume. But right now, there is no sign that anything positive is going to come out in the near future. So as a lawyer yourself, what are your thoughts about this situation?
Well, the first is for us to remember that when we say Nigeria has failed leadership, it includes the judiciary, it includes the legislature and the executive. So the Nigerian judiciary the leadership of the judiciary in Nigeria has failed woefully because they can't even protect the integrity of their own judiciary. So if a national court is under lock and key because government I had about that judgment, government got for what's his name, deputy governor, the former deputy governor, what's his name again? Amadi. And the state government didn't like probably how it was got or the judgment itself, and they went ahead and locked the place, threatened to execute, allow people to take action.
Yeah.
So I expect the chiefs of Nigeria and the NBA, like I said, and the president of that court to address those issues. And if they discover that the government cynically or directly enabled that level of lawlessness, then they should take action against the government. For example, a chief judge could order all the courts to reject any suit of government. So when government is a plaintiff, they will not take until government redeems, apologizes. You see, the powers the judiciary has are not being used because the justice system is compromised. In fact, if you do a public barometer, a survey of confidence, trust, the judiciary and the police have probably the lowest in this country now. People don't trust the judiciary because look at the corruption in the judiciary, look at the elections that they are collecting money left, right, center. So judges themselves, the Nigerian project is failing. Leadership is failing in Nigeria. It includes leadership of institutions, leadership of organizations, and even those that are private based, like NBA.
Yeah.
So the level of clarity you expect, that's part of leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership should be able to know what undermines their business proposition, just like a state, just like flood is on now. A good government will think about what's the impact of this flood. What does it do to education, to health care? Because flood is not just about destroying building. This is vector. This will be an incubator, and of public health cost. Yeah. And of
general
course,
system,
food cost,
yes.
failure of agriculture, everything. So you factor it, then you take radical action. It takes leadership that can think around the threats that these circumstances. So leadership in the judiciary that doesn't understand threat to rule of law, to justice, and allow the court to be shut down because of behavior of some irate crowd and under perhaps the sponsorship or connivance or guidance or complicity of the government. So the way I look at this is tragic that basic things as judgment against a government cannot be executed. I mean, these are the fundamental indicators of whether I can invest in the country or a state. If a government loses election, lose a judgment, and they cannot appeal and they cannot accept the outcome, then it speaks. It tells that it's not a rule-based government, and interestingly, it can be an economically developed government.
Okay, thank you. Again, still on Imo State, the governor recently appointed sole administrators. And people have been wondering, does this fit into the democracy we are trying to promote? Appointment of sole administrators, which means somebody will have the sole rights to govern and do what. So how does that fall in line with our constitution?
It's obviously unconstitutional. When I was running for governor for the primary, I wrote openly, I said, the constitution only contemplates elected local governments. Okay. Therefore, any local government without elected officials is illegal and does not qualify for local government subvention. So if I was the president of Nigeria, or if I was attorney general of Nigeria, the first executive order I will ask the president to make is an executive order authorizing the accountant general not to disburse any money to any state government for any local government that has no elected local government. So the money will be kept in escrow for when that local government is elected, because it's totally, it means that local government doesn't exist under the constitution, and therefore not a proper local government, even though created under the constitution, because the condition for being local government is that it must be democratically elected local government. That's what the constitution spells it out. So the failure is at all levels, at the level of the executive that continues to send, because there is executive function to allocate resources based on the constitutional provisions. Now, when those provisions have now been violated, that the local government does not exist in the eye of the constitution, then there's no obligation to transfer finance. That's what I've done. If you do that, in 3 months, all local governments in Nigeria will be elected. So I think there's been a collapse of constitutional governance, in the sense that both those at the center level don't know what they ought to do, what the constitution allows them to do. So we've seen failure to use the constitution to do public good, and willingness to use their power to oppress citizens. So when it comes to government arresting enemies of government, federal government, maybe somebody speak against them, or radio station that said something they don't like, they will remember the law. But when, in this case, where the law exists for you to do public good, they will not use it. So it's a constitutional failure, it's a version of the constitution, but it's more a leadership failure. That even few state governments have elections. I mean, forget that they rig the elections all the time, and they use their own people. But let there be a semblance of election.
Yeah, but again, one begins to wonder. Some of these aberrations occur under the watch of lawyers themselves, who swore to protect the constitution. Like, what is the role of the Attorney General of the state? Should he not have advised the governor on that kind of error?
If you have a good, extremely radical president of the bar, he could move ahead and get the bar council to agree that any Attorney General of a state that has not done election should resign, or else be struck out of the bar or put under, we need to develop ethical conduct, code of ethics, and say, look, the NBA stands against every use of the local government without democratic election, and therefore NBA commands its members not to take appointment as Attorney General of a governor who does not, and those who have the office should give notice to their governors in 6 months. If they don't do election, they should resign. If they don't resign, we will blacklist them. That would be a fair thing to do, because that's moral responsibility. You cannot be in a government that is openly violating the constitution, and you have a responsibility to advice, and they say this is wrong, and if they can't, you resign. So ABA need to make that rule, and if they make that rule and the council approves it, it becomes the basis for disciplinary action for.
Yeah, these are some of the ways some of these abuses can be contained.
Yes, once you see, if you want to control, that's why to run a state, you need to understand about regulatory process, incentive structure. If you touch the incentive, economic well-being, gains people make, why do they do this? So if you say, if you don't do this, the council will debar you, the council will place you under disciplinary measure. So name and shame at the high level. So people now feel that, look, this attorney is not a person of reputation. Integrity. And maybe it fits into, if they're not yet senior advocates of Nigeria, then they probably will not be conferred with that office because they did not uphold the rule of law.
Okay. Yeah, we again still in Imo State here. If my memory serves me right, I think for 10 or 11 months now, in the State House of Assembly, 3 members of that legislature have been on suspension. And that is very disturbing because it's a kind of excludes the constituency they are representing in governance. And when they are not there, they've been on what is called, is it indefinite suspension? So what do you think is the, how would the people, the constituents, be compensated for this?
Not the constituents should protest to the House of Assembly. I mean, it's one of those developments in this republic that is laughable for other members to expect their members for that long period. If you look at the UK, US, for example, with all the intransigencies of groups like, in fact, maybe the daughter of Dick Cheney herself, Honorable Cheney, who is moving against her party. The party has not expelled her from their caucus. Not talk about. So most of these offenses that are alleged, none of them requires removal of a member in the House. And I think maybe the Nigerian jurisprudence should move up. You know, we do what in the law, we try to defer to the legislative branch of business in their internal control. But I think the law should not come up and say it violates the constitutional right of the people to representation, to politically throw away their representative for that period of time. I think it's unconstitutional, I think it's wrong, and it's undemocratic, and it's actually infantile and silly. It's an affront against the people, and the people themselves should protest and storm those houses assembly to get their people. Why do, by the way, that means they have no representation. And all the offenses they point to are offenses that are not written under the law. There's nothing that these people did that violates a written code. They would say misconduct. Maybe they didn't.
Maybe because they didn't play. Yes.
They didn't play. I mean, that's rascality, and that tells you that this democracy cannot work with certain character. These 419 people, criminals and transactional people, cannot run democracy because they're looking at, as far as they're concerned, they can do anything. You know, a 419 person lives in the life of illusion. Everything is transaction. Everything is deal. Everything is, you know, what I can do this. I can bribe this speaker, bribe Mr. and get everything done. I think the people should see them as a scourge, and for once we say we don't need you guys.
Okay. What are your thoughts, quickly, 1 or 2 questions more. What are your thoughts about the resignation of the British Prime Minister, who just served 45 years?
Well, she has no option. That's how the system works. The system is designed for that. If she loses confidence of the parliamentarians, she's out. That was the parliamentary system of government. So,
was it not the same people that got her into it? You mean they did not know?
They didn't. The problem is this. You see, the British system is designed, and that's part of the weakness now. We think that it's more stable because it doesn't give, like the American system, presidency where somebody stays 4 years and mess up. But now we've seen that it's also weakness, instability. So Boris got himself into some error. Now you replace him hurriedly, you have to get a person. You got this lady who has now manifested incapacity, lack of maturity in the game. I think the system should be redesigned. It's hasty, and it gives few people the right to intrude and remove.
Dethrone.
So you don't have recourse to the people again. Because once the people have elected the parliamentarians, then the parliamentarians select the prime minister and unselect her or him when they like. So I think it's one of the weak features of this parliamentary system, the British model.
Okay, finally, I cannot let you go without asking you a question on Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. The Court of Appeal freed him, discharged and acquitted him, but the presidency is thinking otherwise, and they have appealed to the Supreme Court.
Well, simple. I think the presidency has contradicted their own disposition. They said they didn't want to do political settlement. They want the court. And the judgment of the Court of Appeal was very emphatic, and I think unchallengeable. So going to the Supreme Court is...
It should be respected.
They should have respected it. And again, going to the Supreme Court, I don't see the Supreme Court nullifying the Court of Appeal. It may be more time until the handover power, but I think it doesn't show the government well. The right thing would have been to release him, and if they want to commence another trial against him, properly bring him to jurisdiction, like the Court of Appeal says. Do the right thing. If you take him back to Kenya or wherever, and then you initiate extradition processes and get him back, then he shouldn't be exempt from criminal trial if you follow the right way. But as at this moment, they should have obeyed that
court order.
And that's the problem with when you mix politics and criminal trial. It looks like the Kano's all this trial is just political. If you have to deal with politically. So if you have no evidence against somebody for committing a particular crime, the fact that they are leading a political movement that's against the state does not necessarily mean that you have to
criminalize
it. So when you mix up criminalized political dissent, then you create a problem where you undermine rule of law and you get to this difficulty you have.
Okay, Dr. Sam, thank you so much for your contributions, for being part of the program. We appreciate your coming.
Thank you.
Viewers, thank you for being part of the program, and please remember to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Keep a date with us. Thank you.